Monstrum is one of the first games that I recorded videos for YouTube and just tossed up. Some of my first gameplay videos. And that's because this game is kind of special to me because it does several things that I greatly appreciate in games. First off, it picked what it wanted. It said, we're going to do this. We're going to make a monster. It's going to chase you. You're going to be in this location. It had these very rigid, specific goals. It had a plan, and it implemented that. That turned out really pretty well. I really like it. It is not any specific horror movie that you've seen, but it nevertheless is reminiscent of many things that you may have enjoyed in horror films and horror genres. The end of this year, they're supposed to be releasing Monstrum 2. That's Team Junkfish, the guys who made this game, also made Attack of the Earthlings, and now the sequel to Monstrum. Monstrum, one of its biggest strengths is also a weakness, and that is that it's single player and that you are isolated and alone on this cargo freighter ship with one of 3 possible monsters, all of which are very cool. I enjoy the design of each one of them. Each of them has its own little strengths, weaknesses, and tells. For example, there's a cursed guy that fell in the boiler of the ship or something, and he's like this giant Hulk-looking monster that glows orange, fiery-ish look out of his mouth. So you see a cone of light and a bunch of stomping sounds whenever he is around and walking around, which can be pretty creepy. Then there's the amphibious monster thing that is some sort of deep-sea horror that some idiot smuggled onto this ship in one of the cargo containers and then broke out. It typically doesn't wander the ship. It hides in the vents and waits for you, and will actually set up traps where you'll see egg sacs or something, or goo hanging near a vent or along the edges of the ship's railings. And if you get too close to it, it alerts the creature and it leaps out at you and chases you down, which is also pretty cool. Then the last one is some sort of horrifying demon thing that floats around, is deadly quiet, is smarter than the other 2. I hate this thing so much. Anyway, its tell is that it makes the electricity frizzle and flicker out. So if you want to know where that one is, you run around and you turn all the lights on the ship, and you install fuses to get the power back on so that you have an early warning system. That still doesn't work that great. Now, additionally, there are things on the ship that you can try to turn to your advantage to delay the monster or to defend yourself or to avoid the thing. The cursed guy or the stompy monster does not like fire extinguishers. Doesn't seem to really care about anything else. That's troublesome. The fish creature hates fire. That's useful-ish. There's I think there's flare guns. I think there's a flare gun in the game somewhere. Though I might be getting it confused with Stranded Deep now because there's flare guns in that as well. But more importantly, there's gas cans and lighters. And also, the fish thing doesn't like steam vents. You can blow the steam at the creature and it'll upset it and it'll run off or whatever. I don't know if the demon thing has weaknesses. It just hates me and I die instantaneously whenever I see it. The thing's... That's the rough setup for that. Now, the game itself, Monstrum, is very atmospheric and focuses on building tension. Unfortunately, the way that the game does this is isolation in the ship. It's very quiet. You have to go searching for things, and sometimes you don't know where the creature is or if you can get away if it finds you, which is cool because this practices a good horror movie mechanic of you don't see the monster too much. And in fact, if you see some of my video clips or some of the video clips I'll use for this review, you'll note that the player rarely sees the monster for very long unless something has gone horribly wrong. And that's positive. That is a good thing because it makes the monster, which, if you look real closely at them, they're not that scary. But it makes them scarier because of the lack of a real defense against them and because of the tension built from all the quiet, lonely elements of the game. Now, this can be negative for it later on when you're worrying about replayability. All of a sudden, you're familiar with the game and you are stalled by a sense of, okay, I know the ship, I know the equipment, I know the monsters, and if you've played the game too many times, that can be dull because it's no longer as effective at building tension as it was originally, for me at least. However, I still like the system. I like the design choices that they made to do that. Now, the actual ship can be very dark as well, but you do get like flashlights and glow sticks and that kind of thing to help with that. And you have to search to try and put together one of the 3 different escape routes. Like, there's a life raft that you can patch up and get on board, there's a helicopter that you can fuel up and get out of here with, and there's a submersible that you can jump in and just drive away in. You have to pick one of the 3 of these and start working towards it. Now, that again is another element that I really enjoy because, 1, it gives the player some options, and 2, it means that when you play, it's kind of dependent on what you're finding, that's what you sort of work towards, which also gives some interesting decision-making that you have to make during your survival run. And that's another thing that I like about this game. The visuals for the game, again, also, it really sells me on this sort of a little bit anachronistic. It's hard for me to pin down exactly when this takes place, but like you look at the menu here, there's like these CRT cameras, that old clock there with the turning numbers. I think maybe it's like supposed to be 70s or something, which is also neat. I enjoy the sort of period aspect to it, but it's also nice that it's a bit vague. The story in this game, if you could call it story, I mean, there are collectibles that you can get that are little notes that you find scattered around the ship, and then audio logs. And there's a number of these that you collect by just finding the tape recorder scattered around. Now, since the game just randomly picks one of the monsters to be on the ship with you, and you never really know which one it's going to be, all of the notes and the recordings are somewhat, well, they can't specify which monster it's about, so you get all 3 storylines potentially mixed in with all of the things that you'll find on the ship. Not that there's a whole lot to those storylines, and honestly, even though I've collected all of these and I've read all of them, they were good, but they weren't especially memorable. I would have to read all of them again to even know what they were about, or listen to the audio logs again, because I've completely forgotten what these even sound like. So let's...
There have been a lot of delays, and the big boss Kobayashi's on board. Some of the guys are wondering why he's here and what's his big private stash down in the hold. Might explain why the captain is pretty on edge, too. But my ship starts soon, so I better make this one a quick one for now. So, stay tuned for more. I have absolutely no idea how to do this, but...
Wow. Okay. I see now why I may have forgotten these. That's terrible quality audio. I mean, I know it's intentional. It's sort of like meant to be immersive, but it just... No. No. Just... But, back to the game at hand, that's how the story, if you would call it a story, is implemented. So, this is not a perfect game, but it's well made, and it's clear that the developers who were working on it cared a lot about what they were making. This is why I'm very excited about the sequel that they're releasing, Monstrum 2. I actually really was happy with them doing Attack of the Earthlings, because I liked that they decided to go into something else and not just stick to making what they were successful with. Because Monstrum was their first, I guess, real success. It was the first thing that I ever played that I learned about them from, and it seems to me like this is what's propelling them to make future games. Alright, review time. gameplay, we've already discussed. I liked it a lot. It does have some flaws, or some things don't really pan out as well as you'd like them to, but largely, real good. 6 out of 7. Visuals and presentation, I docked 1 point here because I thought the monsters were not as good as the environment. But again, you don't see them that much, so it's not really that big of a detriment. Story, if I was going to grade it on a story value, I was going to give it 2 out of 7, which honestly, you're not playing this game because you want a deep story, so forget it. Let's not even have a story category for this review. Not applicable. Replayability, I've played, like 50 or 30 or 40 hours of this game at this point. So yeah, I've played it again and again, and with the different monsters and the different escape routes and the random environment, you get a lot out of that. Personal bias, an extra 2 points because it's like being in your own horror movie. I really enjoyed that. Like gets us a score of 20 out of 25 or 80%. And that concludes this. Anyway, long story short, you should support these guys, buy their games, wishlist Monstrum 2 for when it releases.